Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special and sacred online event today. It is called Sacred Revelations of the Christ Path for a Life of Divine Love and Passionate Service. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really blessed and honored to get to lead this program here today and introduce you to a man who is really designed for this moment. He has steeped in scholarship from around the world. He's been at the forefront of our mystical understanding, and he has synthesized an understanding, particularly of the Christ path, the real lineage of Christian mysticism that can serve us in so many profound and blessed ways today. He's the author of dozens and dozens of books. He's the founder of the Institute of Sacred Activism, and his name is Andrew Harvey. He has been one of my foremost teachers and guides and really an inspiration for the Shift Network itself. So it's my blessing and honor to introduce you to Andrew Harvey. Welcome.
Stephen, it's always lovely to be with you. I've known you for 30 years and it's been one of the joys of my life. Thank you.
Well, we're going to dive in there with Andrew today. So I'd say strap in, everybody, because when Andrew really channels this sacred wisdom, you have to open your being on the deepest level and just receive. And we're going to also have a chance to go much deeper with the program on the rediscovering the Christ path. We're really excited to share about towards the end of the hour. So Andrew, let's start with just a little bit of your journey at this moment, is sort of recognizing you've done scholarship in all these mystical lineages. You've forged a path of synthesizing the best of what you've discovered into a path of sacred activism and service. What do you feel is the medicine of the moment that really sources from all of your explorations that we need right now?
I feel that everything that I have ever loved and done and believed is coming to a head in my heart and in my work. And what I feel I know at this moment, and I know it not just in my mind and in my heart, but in the cells of my body, is that we're going through a massive evolutionary revolution. I think all of you who are listening know that the world is now plunged into a massive and unprecedented global dark night, with seemingly intractable crises of every kind erupting on every level in a very devastating way. I say that smiling, not because I'm not deeply shaken and sometimes driven close to despair, as so many are at this moment, but because I have known for 20 years that this time was coming. And in those 20 years, I have begun to understand that this global dark night is potentially something utterly amazing. It's potentially the birth canal of a new embodied divine humanity. So what my work has been about, and is increasingly intensely about, is three related things. It's about helping people to face without illusion and magical thinking this global dark night, so as to truly align with its sacred laws, that if you align with them, will enable you to experience an utterly new level of divine presence in your mind and heart and soul and body. The second thing that has emerged in my own inmost practice and in my study and in my deepest inner revelation is that the new humanity that is being born is a transfigured humanity, an engoldened humanity, and that the perfect design for the birth of that humanity is this global dark night. And the third thing that I know in the cells of my being is that if we align with the laws of the dark night, and if we embrace this astounding evolutionary possibility of being transfigured and engoldened by our aligning with those laws, then we can put into radiant, hopeful, totally transformative practice. Sacred activism, fueled by a wholly new level of divine wisdom, a wholly new embodied level of divine love, and a wholly new urgency of passion and compassion. And bringing all of those three things together has been the task of my life, and teaching others how to bring them together is the task of my life, because I know from my own inmost self that this time, terrible though it is, contains within itself the seed of an unimaginable new possibility, a great hope, a great radiance of divine embodied human presence in radiant, urgent action that can enable all of us to become humble co-creators of a wholly new way of being and doing everything.
Andrew, well, thank you for that profound distillate of your life work and mission and why it meets this moment that we're in. So I want to bring in the thread that we're going to explore a lot today is like, how does all of this relate to the upper octave, the deeper transmission of the Christ lineage and Christ consciousness?
For me, the great revelation of my life was of the authentic Christ consciousness that I met, being lived out with tremendous humility and tremendous passion and splendor by my great heart teacher, Father Bede Griffiths. I met him in my 40s. I'd been on a very intense journey already. I'd been deep into Sufism. I'd been deep into Mahayana Buddhism. I'd been deep into the Hindu Bhakti tradition, and I'd had a fundamental awakening to divine light consciousness. But it wasn't until I met Father Bede that I began to understand that in Jesus we have not the founder of some dreary new religion, and we've seen, my God, where that has ended up, but something much, much, much more thrilling. The pioneer of the next evolutionary shift for the whole of humanity. What I've discovered through the help of Father Bede and through the help of the real and great Christian mystics and through the revelations of the Gnostic Gospels and through a much deeper reading than I ever thought I was able to do of the Gospels, is that what Jesus came to give us was not another religion, but a demanding and gorgeous and exciting path to realizing for ourselves what it means to be a living, pulsing, active incarnation of the divine. That was a revelation for me. And it brought together everything that I had loved and learned from the East, everything that I'd loved and learned from years of translating and living with Rumi. It brought together a vision of all of the divine revelations being focused through the lens of Jesus's urgent passion to see this world transformed into the living kingdom queendom.
I think we can all feel the deep transmission of truth and love in what you just shared. And I'm wondering if you can share a bit further about the specific, like the alchemy that happens when there's sort of the impulse to enlighten and connect with our divinity marries in our own bodies into that fully incarnate, engaged in healing the world, addressing suffering. It's like, how does that inner alchemy actually work?
This is the great revelation at the core of Christian mysticism, because the greatest Christian mystics followed Jesus into that incarnation of divine love. And what they discovered is that if you realize at the deepest level that you're not just being called to become enlightened, to become connected with divine consciousness, which is wonderful enough, you're being summoned to do something even more extraordinary, very difficult, but very amazing, because grace will give you the power to do it. And that is to bring that experience of vast, passionate spaciousness down into your mind, so that your mind becomes the servant of its truth, down into your heart. So your heart is expanded to embrace all sentient beings with blissful compassion, and down, and this is the thrilling emphasis of Jesus, the radical revolutionary emphasis of Jesus, whose ultimate sign to us is not the crucifixion, but the transfiguration and then the resurrection. You're being invited and challenged to bring that burning, ecstatic consciousness down into the cells of the body, so that the whole of your being becomes pulsingly alive with a divine, passionate compassion. Because it's the marriage, you see, of the deepest vision of the sacred masculine and the deepest vision of the sacred feminine. If you want to really understand what Jesus is offering us, there's a marvelous poem by Kabir. It may seem strange to quote a great Indian sage, but Kabir got there too. Kabir realized that the aim of human development was not just enlightenment, it was what he called embodiment, transfiguration. And he has this poem, which is 5 lines in which the whole truth of the path of transfiguration can be experienced. He said, "My father is the absolute Godhead, and my mother is the embodied Godhead, and I am their divine child, dancing for them both on their burning dance floor." Jesus married the highest transcendent awareness and knowledge with the most embodied mother knowledge. And out of that marriage of the deepest sacred understanding of transcendence with the most passionate, the most precise understanding of embodiment, the mother, was birthed in him the new divine human that we are all, I believe, being called to be through this great global dark night process that is making absolutely obvious to many of us that one kind of humanity is over and totally incapable of dealing with the crises that are erupting, but that in the middle of this terrifying death, another humanity that will marry transcendence with immanence, mother with father, male with female, light with dark, soul with body, is being born.
Well, I know we also wanted to give people or guide them in an actual practice that they can take and put some of what you're sharing into their daily lives. And so I know you wanted to lead us in a prayer of St. Francis. And so maybe set a little bit of context for why St. Francis holds such an important function in Christian mysticism to really speak to this embodiment process.
You can never say enough about St. Francis. And he's very sacred to me because of his overwhelming identification through incarnating more and more the kind of passion that I'm speaking of with the whole animal creation. St. Francis lived a life of divine love so intense that he became one in the great stigmata experience with the crucified Christ and lived as a fully Christed being for the last years of his life. And that is one of the greatest signs of transfiguration that we have been given, the greatest signs of this next evolutionary possibility. So, you know this prayer, but I invite you just to listen to it and to hear it as if from the first time, and to hear it not as a prayer from St. Francis, but to hear it as the prayer of the St. Francis in you, the being in you that aches and longs to be totally transcendent, totally immanent, and totally serving all of life and the great work of the birth and the peace in our time. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. How I advise you to do that prayer is to write it out in your own handwriting and claim it as the prayer of the living embodied Christ consciousness in you by doing so. And then when you sit down to practice it, having attuned your mind, your heart, your body to the living presence of the divine in as everything, just go softly and gently from line to line, taking the deepest meaning of that line into the core of the life that you are living right now. So making it your own prayer in the core of your own life. So let's just take the first two lines, and you'll see when you do this practice in this way, it becomes both very thrilling and very nitty-gritty, very real, because relating it to what's going on in your own life, in the world, in your own relationships, and committing yourself to taking that sacred embodied divine position that the prayer opens up in the core of your own life, this world, your relationships, that makes it utterly real in you, for you. And over time, it installs itself in you, and it produces itself when you're about to make crazy decisions, and you find that the prayer will be recited in your soul, and you think, oh my God, I can't go there because I've committed myself to this. It's a very extraordinary experience, but it is available to you, of course. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. I love that line so much, and I can never exhaust my passion for it, because I think what it shows me, and I hope it shows you too, is that in order to become our true living Christ, our embodied divine, we are going to need enormous help, enormous grace. We're going to need divine intervention at all moments to hold us to our deepest truths. So when he says, Lord, make me, I can't do this on my own. Andrew Harvey cannot become a transfigured divine human being on his own. This is not the ego's work. It's not even the personality's work. It's the work of a torrential descent of loving, wild, divine grace from the beloved. So, Lord, make me, make me, make me, make me an instrument of thy peace. And when you say it like that, Lord, make me, you're not just repeating the prayer by rote. You're saying, I am now ready to take on the radiant burden of realizing my divine humanity. Make me. Take me out of my egomania, take me out of my stupid fake mysticism, take me out of my resistance to being my complete, authentic, divine human self, and make me an instrument. And you know, when you really, really meditate on the word instrument, something both chilling and amazing becomes real for you. An instrument, these glasses are instruments in my hand. They don't have any power of their own. My hand moves them. So when you're committing yourself to being an instrument, you're committing yourself to a total surrender of everything you are and everything you know and everything you want and everything you're planning to the much greater intelligence of divine love. So when you come to that word in that first line, really, really steel yourself for the kind of radiant death that love is demanding of you, so that love can use all of you, your mind, your heart, your soul, your body, your energy, your gifts, your passions, to work out its amazing birth in our world. And then really deeply meditate on why St. Francis chose the word peace. He could have chosen any word. He could have chosen bliss. He could have chosen joy. He could have chosen passion for justice. He could have chosen a whole slew of sacred words. But he chose the word peace for the deepest imaginable reason. And that, I believe, is that when you, in awe and trembling, commit yourself to that dying into love that births you into your divine humanity, what is given you as a supreme grace is the peace that passes all understanding. And when that peace is installed in you, you realize that it is not a passive peace, it's a dynamic peace. It's a peace that radiates affection and protection and generosity by its very nature to all beings. And it's a peace that gives you fundamental faith in the unfolding of God's purpose in our burning world, so that your words and your actions, even in these crises that are so intense, are soaked and focused from an abiding calm that reassures others, that embraces others, that says to others without using words, however dreadful the situation may be, there is within it this calm. Connect with that calm. I will help you. And you will be steady to go on giving everything you are in faith, in hope, in love, in joy, in focus. You see, just that line is a whole world. And then just the second line, where there is hatred, let me sow love. I don't have to tell you that hatred is having an orgy everywhere in our world, in our politics, and probably in our own lives. I've remembered that line, that when people have raged against me for the positions I've taken, it's my duty as a lover of the Christ not to reply with hatred, but to deeply, deeply honor those who disagree and maybe even hate what I'm saying or doing, and to try on the inner and outer levels to sow love. You know how difficult that is, but that's what we're being called to. And when you say this second line, that's what you commit yourself to being.
Wow. I don't think any of us will ever see that line again with the same eyes. I'd love to dive a little more into this marriage of masculine and feminine, because so much of what we've inherited in mystical traditions has really been tilted, often typically towards the masculine, in a kind of a distorted, sometimes control-oriented version of what the masculine inheritance is all about. So I'd love for you to paint a deeper picture of like, how do we each activate and embrace the full divine feminine and sacred masculine within us so that we can do this inner alchemy that you described so beautifully?
Well, I'd like to begin by just offering my vision of where Jesus comes in our evolutionary history. And this is bound to be simplistic, but I think that you'll get how exciting it is. I think we began as a human race, and I think we all know this now, very deeply absorbed in a unity with nature, celebrating, as the Neolithic cultures did, the mother. And there was very great wisdom, very great harmony, very great intelligence in this immersion in the natural world, in and under a vision of an all-loving mother. Then there was this tremendous breakthrough into visionary transcendence in the axial age, a shattering breakthrough into the eternal light source of divine consciousness that we are all one with. The problem with that breakthrough was that it was so intoxicating that it led to a devaluation of the earth, of the creation, of the body, and a fundamentally ascetic, transcendentally addicted path that separated us from that great glowing unity that we'd known in the Neolithic age. Jesus came to unite what was known in the adoration of the mother by the indigenous peoples with the great transcendent opening of the Upanishads and the Lao Tzu and the Buddha, in such a way that both the limitations of the early mother passion and the limitations of the transcendental addiction could be healed by fusing them both together in the incarnation of the divine in mind, heart, soul, and body. This is the tremendous revolution that the Christ did for us to give us the way forward. What's needed, and this is what I hope I'll be offering you, is a very deep and rich understanding of both the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine. So that's how you begin to unite them, by really, really exploring in as great and precise a depth what the sacred feminine truly is, both in its transcendent aspects and in its amazing presence right now, right here, in every quark and neutrino and leaf and dancing dolphin, and in each of the cells of our body, with the deepest possible rapturous and blissful awareness of the great open space of transcendent awareness. So how you begin to integrate them is beautifully worked out, I think, by the great alchemists who really understood the Christ journey. And they said that the first part of the journey requires a kind of separation from your ordinary senses and your body, so that you can make that great transcendent breakthrough and realize in the deepest possible way that you are the child, the living embodied child of the divine light. But instead of just going off into the light, as the transcendent traditions invite you to, what you then have to do, having made that ascent through grace, is then bring that light down. Bring it into the depths of your mind so that your mind becomes the servant of its laws of revelation. Bring it down through passionate devotion into the depths of your heart so that your heart is expanded to become the marriage bed of the marriage of transcendence and immanence. And then bring it down into the cells of your body through very specific kinds of meditation, which I'll be offering you, in which you are enabled to experience that your muscles and your cells and your bones are crystallized light energy, waiting for the kiss of the descending light to softly explode into new dynamic presence. This sounds very grand, and it is, but it is actually something that I hope we will be able to experience together in the transmissions that I will offer.
You speak in pure poetry, the kiss of the descending light. I just love it. It's sensuous, this revelation. It's intimate.
God, yeah. Yes, one of the great revelations that I hope to be able to share with people is the revelation of the authentic relationship between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I don't know whether they were married, but I deeply believe, and the evidence is there in the Gnostic Gospels that have come down to us recently, that Mary Magdalene and Jesus were involved at the highest and deepest level in a sacred, tantric, mutually transformative love affair of the very sublimest kind. And I believe that that love affair was what gave Jesus this deep sacred understanding that when sexuality is divinized through divine passion, and when the body is realized as not just a place where the soul is dwelling for a time, but as the temple of the soul, when you realize yourself, in other words, as an embodied soul and an ensouled body, that takes you to a wholly new level of passionate compassion for all other beings, animals, everything that is embodied, and it gives you a wholly new level of focused passion, energy to pour into your service to the world. So the vision that I've been giving of sacred activism isn't a vision born out of duty or guilt or, oh my God, we've got to do something about all the rubbish and craziness that we've created. It's a vision of, oh my God, if we can taste the sacredness of being embodied and unite with the power of the transcendent, then we can flow out in a great holy passion, energy of compassion together to co-create together out of tremendous joy the world of justice and compassion and harmony that we all know in the depths of our heart is the world we most deeply long for.
Extraordinary. Andrew, how does that inform your vision of sacred activism, which so often activism has a sense of polarizing against the other versus ultimately a kind of a unification at heart and soul level?
You know, my vision of sacred activism was born out of that experience of the Christ. And in that experience, Jesus made it absolutely clear that he was outraged at injustice, at cruelty, at the madness that we are inflicting, but that if you approach those who are unwitting instruments of those very destructive forces with hatred or demonizing them, you are becoming one with the very darkness that you are trying to transform. So what the Christ path demands of all of us, and what authentic sacred activism demands of all of us, is on the one hand to be very, very clear, without any illusion and without any magical thinking, about the very ferocious dark forces that have taken people over, that people have become addicted to, and which are now causing massive and potentially lethal crises on every level. To combine that clarity, the wisdom of the serpent, with the absolute commitment to never banish anyone from your heart. And I think that in the 20th century, we've had amazing examples of people who could do both. And it's astonishing that they were, all of them, very deeply influenced by the Christ. Gandhi was very profoundly influenced by the Beatitudes in his unremitting opposition to what the British were doing, but his unremitting opening in love and compassion to the British, even as he opposed them, which gave him enormous and bewildering moral authority that they couldn't do anything about, and eventually led to the liberation of India. Think of what Martin Luther King was able to model in the middle of potentially devastating racial wars in this country. On the one hand, standing up with prophetic passion for a wholly new dispensation, and on the other hand, always, always keeping even the most brutal of the Southern opposition and the opposition of racism in general, always keeping even the most brutal beings who were hallucinatory caught in that trap in his heart. This is our task as sacred activists.
This is our task. So, Andrew, you have spoken so much truth already here today, and I know there's so much more you can share, and you have an opportunity to do so in this profound new program that you're offering, which is really a reinvention of something that we did in the past, and is now going to be a transmission for the times we are in, really drawing from all of the threads you've heard today to a path that takes the example of Jesus and the Christian mystics and weaves them with wisdom from around the world into this remarkable synthesis, this path of transfiguration and sacred activism and service. So the program is called Rediscover the Christ Path. Embody your divinity and walk the way of love and action in your everyday life. It's going to be a 7-week journey, really an initiation into a new way of being that is suffused with this and permeated with this divine intelligence and grace that Andrew transmits so beautifully. And it will help you to reconnect with the threads of a Christianity that you might have grown up with or that you might have resonated with, and to hold them in a wider context that is holding the sacred inheritance of the world in a way that is really quite extraordinary, and that I'm deeply grateful to Andrew for illuminating for my personal life and so many others. This is seminal work. This is the work of a moment. This is the work of this birthing of the divine humanity that we are all engaged in. So there's no prerequisites for this program. It's just if you feel the nudge from spirit, the call of your soul to embark on this, you are warmly welcome. So Andrew, I'd love for you to share in your own words why take this journey with you, and then I'll read out the module titles and we can give a sneak preview of what's coming.
I think the real reason to take this journey is to be initiated and galvanized by a new kind of hope in the middle of the pain and agony of everything that we're experiencing. I think that when you connect with Jesus and the Christ path, not the Christian religion, but the Christ path, beyond anything that you may have ever felt or understood about either, what you connect with is an enormous power of love that will transfigure you and enable you to rise in the fullness of your humble divine human being, to meet this crisis not with dread, but with an amazing sense of what can now be born. That's the main reason.
Module 1 is on rediscovering the Christ path.
Module 1 is my sort of manifesto of Jesus as the founder of an evolutionary, revolutionary path. And I'll dive into all the extraordinary new historical scholarship and, of course, into the Gnostic Gospels, where Jesus just lays it on us, and not as a unique Son of God guru person, but as someone who knows that you and I are capable of just as miraculous and empowered a life as he is longing to give us everything to be able to live that life.
Module 2, embracing the sacred feminine.
This is probably my favorite module, because what has changed my life is understanding that Jesus is as much the Son of the Mother and as the Son of the Father, and realizing at a deep level that the Jesus event is fueled both by Mary Magdalene in the way that I've suggested, but also by his mother, who is, I believe, nothing less than the embodied divine mother, so that the entire Jesus event becomes an event of the sacred marriage, the transcendent father, the embodied mother, and the divine tantric consort, and Jesus as the spokesperson for this revolutionary new message. And I'll dive into Jesus's identification with the wisdom tradition that was feminine. I'll dive into Jesus in the Gnostic Gospels when he celebrates God as mother as well as father. I'll dive into what I'm discovering about the Mary Magdalene-Jesus relationship. And I'll dive into a very beautiful and holy tradition that inflames me, of medieval women mystics who worship Jesus as mother because they realized this potent sacred androgyny that the whole Christ path celebrates. And I'll dive into my great devotion to Mary as divine mother and share with you a new interpretation that has come to me of the Hail Mary, which I think will thrill you and inspire you.
Module 3, activating the divine masculine.
Well, Jesus is also a revolutionary of the sacred masculine, and he gives us and enables us to experience exactly the kind of sacred masculine that we now need to be born in millions of sincere men all over the planet. And I'll be sharing my vision of the 8 different aspects of this sacred masculine. And I'll be sharing my sense of how Jesus shows us that the sacred masculine must be totally in service of the sacred feminine and its virtues of life and embodiment and abundance of joy and justice and compassion. And I'll be sharing my sense of how, when you see Jesus as this astoundingly not just enlightened, but embodied and deeply, in the richest sense, feminized divine male, you have the most perfect model that we now need for the transformation of all men to rise to this crisis, to use the great powers of the masculine to protect the earth and to bring in embodied visions of harmony, compassion, and justice.
Wow. Module 4, birthing the divine child.
This is where I'm going to share the very thrilling vision of transfiguration that I myself received from my teacher, Father Bede Griffiths. Father Bede was in his 80s when I met him, and he was consciously going through this great secret, the secret of being born into embodied divine humanity, the secret of transfiguration that had been known by other great Christian saints, but had been lost. And he was able to share with me very nakedly and directly secrets about this process that I will share with you. Fundamentally, the birthing of the divine child through the marriage of transcendence and immanence is the transfiguration process. And I'm going to be able, for the first time, I think, to give you the richness of what I have been discovering about this process, both from Bede, both from the great Christian mystics and the other mystics like Sri Aurobindo and Kabir, who knew this process as well. So you will be excited to understand our next evolutionary leap.
Module 5, Walking the Christ Path.
In this, I'm going to share the revolutionary evolutionary path to transfiguration that I have, through 20 years of studying the Christian mystics and undergoing this path myself through the inspiration of Bede and through the inspiration of Aurobindo and the Mother and Kabir, understood as the 4-part path to transfiguration. And I don't think this has ever been given in the kind of way that I'm going to try to give it to you. It's really important now to have a map of this evolutionary process. And drawing on the great Christian mystics, but also on the other mystics of transfiguration that you could find in the Shaivite tradition and Mahayana, etc., I will offer you what I hope will be the most comprehensive map of this transfiguration process that I believe you are all now in, whether you yet know it or not.
Module 6, Marrying the Opposites, Light and Shadow, Soul and Body.
A great Christian mystic, much beloved by Jung and by me, called Nicholas of Cusa, said that God is the coincidence of opposites. And if you're going to take the path of the authentic Christ path, the path of the marriage of ultimate kinds of opposites, transcendence and immanence, you're going to have to learn how to negotiate the very difficult but very beautiful business of marrying transcendence and immanence, the masculine and the feminine in you, the light and the dark in the nature of reality, in such a way that you come to experience yourself, your godlike humanity. So I'll be taking as my primal text the great instruction that Jesus gave in Matthew 10 when he says, you're going to go out like sheep among wolves, to his disciples. It's going to be tough out there. But what I tell you is the best way to go out is to marry the wisdom of the serpent and the innocence of the dove. And I'm going to try and unpack that wisdom for you and offer you very practical ways to start doing or allowing to be done this marvelous marriage of opposites that in the end will reveal yourself to yourself as an embodied divine human being.
And finally, Module 7, Sacred Activism and the Divine Human.
The entire purpose of the Christ path is to awaken you to your divine humanity, not simply so that you can revel in it and enjoy it, but that you can use the energy and the wisdom and the passion and the peace and the compassion that streams to you from that amazing experience to pour yourself out in sacred activism. And sacred activism at its deepest is the marriage of the profoundest spiritual realization that comes through the transfiguration process in amazing ways, with clear, wise, sacredly inspired action. And this marriage within Christ consciousness of the deepest spiritual divine understanding on every level of your being with wise, guided, urgent action produces a transformative force, which is nothing less than the force of divine love in action. It is this force that is trying to be born in millions of people now, and it is the birthing of this force that I've dedicated my life to, because I know that if we can birth it, we can transform what seems like impossible disaster into unprecedented opportunity.
Well, what an extraordinary offer, and it couldn't be better time for this moment. And it's really the fruit of a lifetime of scholarship and practice and deep commitment to birthing a new era for humanity. So thank you, Andrew, for this program. I'll share a little bit more about it. You get 7 90-minute sessions with Andrew. There's recordings of every session with video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts, weekly exercise and practices, and we've been super, super generous with the bonuses as well. There's a video dialogue with Andrew and Matthew Fox, one of the preeminent theologians and scholars of our time about Christian mysticism, called Celebrating Angelus Silesius. There's also an ebook from Andrew called Becoming God, 108 Epigrams from the Cherubinic Pilgrim. There's a video dialogue with Andrew and Adam Bucko called The New Monasticism. There's a one with Carolyn Baker, The Role of Fundamentalism in Our Global Dark Night, as well as a really beautiful exploration of St. John of the Cross's Knowing Unknowing with Mirabai and Andrew, Mirabai Starr. So that's just the core bonuses for the program. And we give you some extra bonuses when you sign up by midnight tonight. And this is our way to encourage you to make a decision now while you've really heard and received the depth of this transmission and offering. And if you choose to sign up by midnight tonight, you get 5 extra selected sessions from our Mystic Summit, the 2021 Mystic Summit, which includes not only Andrew, but Anne Lamott, Mirabai Starr, Gangaji, and Jamal Rahman. Really profound transmissions there to enhance your journey. So I strongly encourage you to read through the testimonials. I can personally say Andrew's teachings around the Christ path have transformed my understanding and my being at a very deep level for many decades now. And the testimonials of people who have gone through programs with him focused in this area are just stellar and revelatory and really give a sense for the engoldenment that awaits you when you embrace these practices and perspectives. So Andrew is a gift to all of us, and we're really blessed to have him offering this program, Rediscover the Christ Path, and your life will evolve and change and open in really many blessed ways. So Andrew, we're at the end of our time together. Just anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering going further with you on this journey?
I'd like to read you one of the poems of transfiguration that come from the heart of this amazing secret that I'm going to try and share with you. It's by a man called Simeon the New Theologian. That sounds very geeky, doesn't it? But this man was actually aflame in heart, mind, soul, and body with the birth of the divine child, the birth of the divine humans. And this is the birth that I so devoutly hope will happen to you through this series of transmissions. We awaken in Christ's body as Christ awakens our bodies. And my poor hand is Christ, he enters my foot and is infinitely me. I move my hand and wonderfully my hand becomes Christ, becomes all of him. For God is indivisibly whole, seamless in his Godhood. I move my foot and at once he appears like a flash of lightning. Do my words seem blasphemous? Then open your heart to him and let yourself receive the one who is opening to you so deeply. For if we genuinely love him, we wake up inside Christ's body, where all our body, all over, every most hidden part of it is realized in joy as him, and he makes us utterly real. And everything that is hurt, everything that seemed to us dark, harsh, shameful, maimed, ugly, irreparably damaged, is in him transformed and recognized as whole, as lovely, and radiant in his light. Awaken in the beloved, as the beloved, in every last part of our body. They didn't teach you that at Sunday school, but that is where we're going. How amazing.
How amazing, Andrew. Well, thank you. Whew. We have received so much in this hour with you. Thank you so much just for who you are and your willingness to speak the raw, naked, deep, mystical truths that can liberate us from this dark night and open this new era for all of us to step into. So thank you, Andrew. And thank you all for joining. And I strongly recommend going further with this beautiful soul who can really open a wholly new path forward. And we have the 5 extra bonuses from our Mystic Summit when you sign up by midnight tonight. So thank you all. Thank you, Andrew.